All right, folks, it is October 17th, 2024, and we got Deaton versus Senator Warren round two. This is going to be a live show. We're just warming it up. This is the pregame, running it on up here as we got Deaton once again taking XRP viral, working to save the country. This is what we're here for. This is what we live for, right? All we want is a level playing field for everybody, not just here in the United States of America, but worldwide. What we have here is a solution in XRP, a neutral bridge currency, and our man, John Deaton, took this thing viral on the debate stage on Tuesday, and in tonight's debate, are we going to see him put on a clinic when it comes to political debate? Is he going to put on another clinic when it comes to dismantling and destroying Elizabeth Warren, all of her arguments, all of her excuses, 12 plus years as a senator? So little done besides selling out the American people, and Deaton did a fantastic job of applying pressure, really in a way that I didn't expect him to either. So folks, I'm going to warm us up here. We're going to get a live going. As we're warming up the session here, though, please share it out far and wide. If you're new here, make sure you guys subscribe. We're going to be live on X, on YouTube, and on TikTok once again. We want to get the message out. We want John Deaton. We want the people of Massachusetts to know who John Deaton is, because when they find out about John Deaton, they ain't going to be voting for Elizabeth Warren anymore. Of course, it's a Democrat stranglehold there in Massachusetts. We haven't seen an incumbent. We have not seen an incumbent Democratic senator in Massachusetts lose in over 100 years, according to a political analysis out of Massachusetts. So once again, it's a long shot, but if anybody can do it, it's a Marine who fought for his country, a lawyer who fought for the underserved, right? A lawyer who stepped up for the XRP community and the broader crypto community, right? A whole industry. He fights for industries that are under attack. If anybody can do it, it's John Deaton. Tonight, it's round two. I can't wait to see what he has in store here. I think that he's going to be even better. See, he was already on point, his messaging, and he blew our expectations out with what he said, what he mentioned, mentioning XRP, saying, Madam Vice President Kamala Harris, you can thank my work for fighting for XRP clarity, because we just got you, one of these crypto billionaires just donated you $1 million worth of this XRP cryptocurrency digital asset. So you can thank us, right? You can step aside and get out of our way and give the American people what they want. And so he mentioned that. He mentioned fighting and calling out the SEC. He called out Elizabeth Warren on her unwillingness to question JP Morgan on what actually matters. Of course, JP Morgan is making billions of dollars off of overdraft fees. That's the least of our concerns when we got to consider crimes against humanity. Crimes against humanity is what we should be questioning. Why JP Morgan was facilitating and funding it. That's the type of questioning when given an opportunity. If you really were a champion of the women, that's what you would be pressing on. And so John Deaton absolutely lit it up on Tuesday. We're bringing it back here for this one, and I just want to make sure that we're getting the word out. So real quick, I'm about to go through all of my update. I got a full show lined up here pregame, and then we'll get into the debate here. That's going to be starting here shortly. But I want to get the word out. So please, if you haven't already, share it out far and wide. Make sure you've liked the video, drop a comment down below, and let me know what you think. I'm going to be watching the chat here. We're just getting started. I got my cup of coffee poured up in a little Halloween spooky cup that wifey got. It's kind of silly, but hey, I got my coffee ready to go. I hope you guys are, I know it may be 5 o'clock somewhere, so whatever you got, whether it's your coffee, your adult beverage, your popcorn, strap in, folks, because we're saving the country and we're making XRP go viral, and cheers to that. Good stuff. Good stuff. Okay, let's rock and roll. Now, this is the Bitcoin chart to get started here. Bitcoin back down to 66 earlier today, but we were above 68 just yesterday, right? We came back down here right now, 67,200. 67,200 is where Bitcoin is hanging out at right now. For XRP, it's back down to 54.5. This is after we shot up to 56.5 cents yesterday. And of course, we're left right now in no man's land waiting to see if the SEC is going to appeal or not. I put out a video yesterday. I put out a video last night saying, hey, don't shoot the messenger just because I'm asking the question here. what the heck's going on here. From Stuart Alderati saying that the deadline was yesterday, to additional lawyers and legal experts also chiming in and saying that the deadline was yesterday. I believe right now that the deadline was yesterday, but this is the SEC. And they obviously believe that the laws don't apply to them. They've already caused massive damages, and every single delay just adds to the damages, right? So we talked about XRP fair market value. I have my red folder right here ready to go because when John Deaton, maybe he's going to mention it again here tonight, the damage is done by the SEC to the XRP community. One thing to be considered is the fundamental value of XRP, right? And what it would be at if the SEC hadn't launched this attack against XRP. And one thing to consider too is the damage is done because of the actions of the SEC. Every time they delay, the damages, are just added on top of it. So it's not so much that the XRP fundamental valuation goes up, it's the damages done to the community. I think there's two parts to that conversation that need to be considered. And we're not going to let up until we get our level playing field. See, it's not just winning this case for XRP. We want to instill and make sure that we solidify our right to transact sound money freely. This is not just an XRP movement. This is a sound money movement. Now, speaking of this movement and what we got going on here, I did link up down below the website for Fruition Productions. They just dropped this XRP Unleashed Premier merch drop. And I want to give a shout out to Maya and Chris and the whole team over here. They're funding this out of their pockets. This is one way that we can support their cause and what they're doing with this documentary. They've had to self-fund this. Hollywood wasn't interested in this, and I'm glad that they weren't, by the way, because now we're going to take it viral, and we don't need Hollywood. See, this is what this whole battle is all about, is the old guard trying to hold it back, trying to stop us from implementing this new financial system. That's why XRP was chosen, because it actually was a threat to the incumbents. It wasn't just Mickey Mouse meme time. It was change the whole financial system and world. And it was a better Bitcoin, and it still is a better Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the sideshow, right? Just like, what was the CEO of Franklin Templeton, right? She said that Bitcoin is the main distraction from the real disruption, which is the underlying technology. What's a better Bitcoin? Some say Ethereum, some say Solana. Clearly, XRP has a track record that's nearly as long as Bitcoin, had the first DEX. And what's interesting, too, is that we just got decentralized identity. The 2-week activation on the XRP ledger just started. So we got additional amendments that are being passed right now, being considered in the pipeline. This is at a time right now where XRP is about to step forward with a legal advantage, a competitive advantage that they will have in the legal aspect, will be combined with the technological advantage that they have, where all of these capabilities are coming in at the layer 1. And we're still considering whether or not to bring smart contracts to this platform. But in the meantime, right, the XRP ledger is actually ready to scale. We can actually handle this load that's going to be coming in. When you look at some of these other chains, they have pinch points. They have bridges that are getting hacked because everything's done on layer 2s. The AMM on the XRP ledger is one of the first. It's not the first, but it's one of a few that's actually a layer 1 AMM protocol. Everything else is Uniswap layer 2. Well, now Uniswap's getting served up a Wells notice, and they're probably next to get sued by the SEC as well. So side point, I'll talk more on that later. The point being, guys, we got to get the message out here. So I linked it up down below. This is Fruition Productions tonight at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. So after the show here tonight, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, on their website, the ticket sales go live for the U.S. screening tour of the XRP Unleashed documentary. They're going to be over half a dozen different cities across the country, pre-screening, and it starts, I think, middle of November, November 12th or 13th, till the last one in LA, November 19th. So I'm really looking forward to this. Once again, Maya and Chris self-funded this operation. Tickets are going to go on sale. It's $40 for the pre-screening. If you want to go to one of these theaters and watch it, it's going to be $40. But also, they made this super cheap. $15 to be able to buy the documentary pre-order. $15, and it's going to be released to you guys on the 21st. The 21st of November, the documentary will be released for those that have bought it on the website. for 15 bucks. And then if you want to do the pre-screening, that's going to be next month as well, the week before it releases for everybody. That pre-screening, $40 per ticket. We also got the merch linked up down below. All of this goes to a good cause. An independent film company. Got to meet these people, sit down with them. These are real folks who did a lot, sacrificed a lot to put out this film. And I think that it's going to pay off big time. This is a piece of history set to drop next month. Let's do everything that we can to support them and get the word out. Now, continuing on here, folks. When we talk about flipping the switch, you know, everybody talks about flipping the switch in regards to XRP price. This is how you onboard and flip the switch for 60 million users. Venmo's 60 million users can now buy crypto using MoonPay. What's interesting, we look over at MoonPay, they just showed up to Ripple's Swell conference. Attend Hut XRP Army roll call. In partnership with Ripple, you can now buy, store, and manage your XRP directly within the MoonPay account. Whether you're a new recruit or a loyal soldier, welcome home, XRP Army. Let's go. See, they just flipped the switch, and they're going to be one of the partners here with Ripple in addition for Ripple's stablecoin. Now, this Ripple stablecoin being slept on big time. Not only in the XRP community, I think we're still kind of underestimating it. We're like, oh, this is cool, but we're still trying to understand what this is and what it's going to be. Well, we're starting to get some glimpses, and what we just saw here today was Tony Edwards, Thinking Crypto, released his interview with Brad Garlinghouse there in Miami, Ripple Swell Conference. Brad Garlinghouse just dropped this bomb low-key. Just low-key said that Ripple and Ripple Payments is responsible for minting 20% of all USDC. So, I mean, as a business owner, usually you don't want one client to be more than 5 or 10% of your business, right? Any more than that, and you're left yourself a little bit vulnerable. In this regard, Circle getting propped up here by Ripple minting 20% of all USDC at one point. Take a listen on this clip from Brad Garlinghouse, and just think too, instead of this now being USDC on different blockchains, this is going to be RLUSD on the XRP ledger, or RLUSD on Ethereum and the other blockchains, because they're going to issue RLUSD on a bunch of other chains, similar to how Circle's on multiple chains, Tether's on multiple chains, RLUSD is going to be on multiple chains as well. But think about bringing all this liquidity to RLUSD instead of USDC.
Ripple has been using stablecoins in our payment flows for years, and you've used Tether, we've used USDC. There's actually a point in time where our institutional flows represented 20. Because of that, we were minting 20% of all USDC. And so we're kind of looking at that, and then we look at what happened during the banking crisis, where USDC depegged by 7%. And, I kind of came to the conclusion there's an opportunity here, given that we are driving a lot of activity, a lot of velocity, a lot of liquidity, and the fact, frankly, that we have a very strong balance sheet, that we felt like there was an opportunity for Ripple to play in this market.
Now, you heard him mention, hopefully, I know that was a very quiet clip, so my apologies if that was too quiet, but you heard him mention their balance sheet and the exposure that Circle had where it depegged by 7% during the banking crisis. This is what I've mentioned as the competitive advantage for Ripple. They can store their collateral at their trust company. Standard custody is going to be the one to issue RLUSD, and then they'll be able to keep the collateral there at that trust company in New York. As soon as they get the regulatory approval, they're going to flip the switch and launch RLUSD. Collateral will be held at their own trust company. They won't have to they won't have to worry about counterparty risk with their collateral for their stablecoin. Now, whether or not somebody wants to trust Ripple or Standard Custody and Trust as the issuer and trust them to hold that collateral, that's one thing that you got to consider, right? When I look across the board, I don't trust Tether and I trust Circle more. Do I trust them all the way? No. But it's just like these exchanges, right? You got to conduct a business transaction. I'm not here to be friends with the exchanges. I'm here to use them, conduct my business transaction, and in most cases, get my long-term holdings off these exchanges. When it comes to Ripple, right, they're not going to have to rely on anybody to store their collateral. They'll be able to do it in-house, nearly no cost, right? And, you think about that as a competitive advantage. On top of that, Brad mentions his balance sheet. When I look at Ripple stepping up to the plate here, I trust Ripple way more than I trust a lot of these other players. I mean, even PayPal, I would say I trust PayPal more than I do, Tether, and I'd put them right up next to Circle, right? PayPal has just as much track record as Circle does, right? But this is a real competition underway, and the sooner that we can get to market, the better. I'm really hoping that we can get the regulatory approval on the RLUSD so we can flip the switch on that here soon. Because the longer this goes on, right, he just mentioned they're minting 20% of USDC. So USDC would be 20% smaller if it wasn't for Ripple. Do you understand how big of a deal that is? This is the second largest stablecoin in the space. Nearly a quarter of that, 1/5 of what is USDC in that market cap is because Ripple's payment flows. See, this is no joke. Ripple's payments program, right, they're offering here. You combine it with the custody. You combine it with their own stablecoin now, right? This is starting to really build up this whole momentum behind XRP. And I know people are like, you've been saying that. We've all been saying that. We've all been hyped up. When is XRP price going to go? It has to move here eventually. And right now, I just see vulnerabilities in the broader markets that concern me. For XRP, it's pretty much smooth sailing from here. There's not much uncertainty that we face, right? Is the SEC going to appeal? Maybe. Yeah, probably. Even if they do, XRP is a matter of law. It's not a security. And so we have that going forward where the rest of the space doesn't. We have ETP filings coming live. Multiple, not just spot XRP ETPs, but now you've seen Grayscale wants to convert their large cap fund, which includes Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, and a few others. They want to roll that over to an ETF as well. And I showed it in my update earlier today, the inflows and the flows, cumulative flows, right? The amount of money that's come into the Bitcoin ETFs is record setting. And then the amount of volume trading between the Bitcoin ETFs is also record setting as well. It took gold 5 years to achieve the amount of trading volume and flows that the Bitcoin ETFs have done already, right? What has it been? Not even 10 months, right? It was approved in January. So what has it been? 9 months? In 9 months, we accomplished what the gold ETFs did in 5 years. Now, obviously, the ETF environment is much stronger nowadays, right? ETFs are huge. But it just goes to show the appetite for this is massive. And when you look at Ripple Swell, just looking across Twitter, all these folks that are not only like invited to go, but they're like bragging about going to Ripple Swell. It's not just, oh, yeah, I got paid a speaking engagement fee to go speak at this crypto conference. No, it's like big hitters that are bragging about going there, including regulators, including the New York Department of Financial Services. The New York Department of Financial Services put up a post sharing Adriana Harris on stage there with the chief legal officer of Ripple. You cannot show me one other crypto conference, one other crypto company, one other crypto project where that's taking place at. You just can't, right? There's no regulators showing up to an Ethereum conference, right? Are there regulators showing up to some Bitcoin conferences? Maybe, right? I haven't seen, but guys, the point being, these folks are thrilled. I'm about to show you here later in this. Banks, thrilled to come on down to Ripple Swell Conference. Right here. In fact, it's the next clip I got teed up. The demand is absolutely there for banks that can show up from a product and compliance first perspective. This is Erica Khalili, Chief Legal and Risk Officer and co-founder of Lead Bank. But what? I thought that no banks wanted to use XRP. No banks wanted to work with Ripple. Well, why are banks showing up at the Swell Conference and talking about how much demand there is, right? Listen in here real quick.
I think right now you see this dichotomy of crypto for the crypto world and crypto for the real world. And I think that that's where I really see a future in terms of the use cases. And the use cases that resonate are not only on the investment side, but also the really human use cases and how you can unblock access to financial services for people that have been traditionally kept out of those on a global basis. And that's where I think banks that can show up from like a product and compliance first perspective, the demand is absolutely there. And I think that that's how crypto can be incredibly impactful across multiple domains.
Okay, hold up. This is breaking news. I'm getting messages that James Flan just gave us an update. Folks, are you guys messing with me? Somebody just said that James Flan just gave an update. Now, Gary Gensler just did give an update as well. They're trolling us hard. I'm going to look up James Flan here real quick, and we're going to see. Here it is, folks. Breaking news. Breaking. The SEC has filed the civil appeal pre-argument statement Form C with attachments. The most last-minute filing in legal history. Here it is, folks. This is the Form C. Let's go to this website. This is Dropbox. Let's see here. Goodness, this is going to be an interesting one. State of proceedings, nature, right. I want to see if we can find out what, we need to find out exactly what they appealed on. I'm going to scroll here, folks. Wow. Okay, we're getting into it. This just dropped. They had to drop this one just before Deaton took the stage against Elizabeth Warren, folks. We got about 35 minutes till the debate starts. So we got time to cover this. This is breaking news. If you guys haven't already, please make sure you've liked the video. Share this out far and wide. This is breaking news within the last 3 minutes. Wow. We knew it was coming, didn't we? We had a little hope. We had a little hope that maybe they messed up. Maybe they forgot to press send. I'm going to read this off here. Dennis, thank you for the 5 chat. SEC was late. It will be dismissed. SEC has 14 days after dismissal to file and reinstate appeal. They need a damn good reason. 90% it's over. So Dennis says it's still over. Does the law apply to the SEC here? Now, once again, I'm still sticking to yesterday was the deadline. I still am sticking to that because that's what Stuart Alderati says. That's the chief legal officer of Ripple. That dude's paid a lot of money to make sure that he knows what's going on in this case. He doesn't slip up. Stuart Alderati is a legal assassin. On top of that, many other legal experts, and these aren't just like folks claiming to be lawyers on Twitter. These are real folks that we know are practicing lawyers in securities as well. And everything that we were able to gather, even John Deaton's law firm, Crypto Law US, said that yesterday was the deadline. So I believe that this was late, technically was late. It's just like in school when you turn in your homework late. Is the teacher going to accept it? She's going to say, okay, I'll give you this one time. But how much forgiveness can the SEC get? Now, I want to hear from you guys. Do you think that this is going to stick? We're going to be getting opinions from the lawyers on X here coming in. So please share them with me. If you guys got anything for me, just share it here in the chat. And we're going to follow this. This is breaking news. Let's see. Let's see here if I can find you. Can you read that? Yeah. In this civil law enforcement action, the SEC alleged that defendants, violated Section 5. We know about that. Yeah. A copy of the notice of appeal. Okay, Addendum B to Form C. Whether the district court erroneously granted partial summary judgment in favor of defendants with respect to Ripple's offers and sales of XRP on digital asset trading platforms and Garling, Houses, and Larson's aiding and abetting of those offers and sales, Garling, Houses, and Larson's personal offers and sales of XRP, and Ripple's distributions of XRP in exchange for consideration other than cash, these issued are to be reviewed de novo. Okay, so right there, it is Larson, it's Brad and Chris's sales, along with the other distributions. In Ripple's distribution of XRP in exchange for consideration other than cash. So are they saying that it's specifically not where Ripple sold XRP or distribute XRP for something other, or, you know, for cash, that's fine. But when they maybe they paid, right, contractors in XRP, are they trying to say that that's an investment contract? Ripple distributions of XRP in exchange for consideration other than cash. So if they got paid in cash, not an investment contract. But Ripple's distributions of XRP in exchange for consideration other than cash, like work or labor, services to be rendered, that's an investment contract. Is that what they're going for right now, folks? So, yeah, so I like how they still mention the aiding and abetting of those sales as well. Garling, House's, and Larson's personal offers and sales of XRP and Ripple's distributions of XRP. So there's two things right here that they're appealing on. These issues need to be reviewed. All right. Is that it? Or is this going to, I'm scrolling down right now through this document. All the lawyers, all the movements, is tagging everybody. Guys, what is going on here? This is an appeal of Brad and Chris's personal sales, and then Ripple's. Oh, look at John Deaton included, attorney to be noticed. Uh-oh. The debate pre-show starting up. Let me mute that real quick. Let's go back here. John Deaton. I'm trying to see, where are we at here? These are all the orders. Is this all the other motions? Yes, this is just like the case history. Okay, I'm going to keep on scrolling here. It looks like those are the only two things that the SEC is appealing on. That's not a strong appeal, guys. This is weak. I mean, from the SEC, we really wouldn't expect much else. They file it late, and okay, did I find it down here? One sec, I found some more. My apologies, folks. This is breaking, so we're trying to figure out here what exactly they just appealed on. And I don't really, you know, I don't even know what I'm looking at per se with these legal documents. That addendum that I read off there was a quick one. So they got a discussion here. Discussion, okay. Procedural background, yep. Okay, I think I found this. Okay, good. Okay, here's the background. Yep. Okay. Well, folks, this is breaking news. The SEC has appealed. From what I've been able to gather too far, it is on Brad Garlinghouse and Chris Larson's sales, and then the other distributions that Ripple made, where they were basically paying people for services in XRP. Right. Now, it's going to be very, very interesting to. I'm going to have to. Yeah, I was going to say, good thing I just replaced my toner, my ink and toner for my printer. Running out of ink here and paper. Gonna have to print this whole thing out and go through this, guys, but this is a breaking news update. The SEC appeal has occurred, and now we get 7 days, I believe, for Ripple to file their cross appeal. So we're going to be able to read through this document, and then by next week, we will know Ripple's response to this. It's funny that they mentioned Brad and Chris still aiding and abetting, right? This is something that was used against terrorists, and now they're trying to use it against Brad Garlinghouse and Chris Larson. Aiding and abetting. That's got to be the weakest appeal ever. Yeah, exactly. I mean, those two things, it's just like, okay, like, you know, it's going to be a tough argument for, I think, them to make in both regards. But I'm interested to see, you know, maybe it's further down in there, but, you know, they mentioned the injunction, but they didn't add on to the injunction and the penalty. They didn't ask for that to be changed. I mean, maybe they're going to ask that a penalty be served up for those other sales as well. but it looks like they're not, didn't mention anything about the injunction, didn't mention anything per se about the penalty. But I'm going to have to print this out, read through this whole thing, and summarize this. Maybe I saw somebody said run it through Chat GPT. Yeah, maybe somebody can run it through Chat GPT and see. Did the SEC not drop the charges with prejudice for Brad and Chris? That's an interesting question. They did. Was that the case, or did the judge just dismiss those in the summary judgment? Wow. Breaking. Mark Fagel. So he used to be an SEC lawyer, so he's always jumping on the SEC bandwagon. He's responding to James Flan here. Oh my God, they're appealing exactly what we've all been saying they would be appealing. Crazy. He says the SEC is appealing the part of the summary judgment motion they lost, where the court ruled that programmatic and non-cash sales were not security sales plus individual liability, just as Ripple is appealing the part they lost. Institutional sales were security sales. Okay. So that's what we've gathered so far. This is breaking news. The SEC appeal is in. I believe that it was late. But we're going to have to wait to see from our lawyer friends whether or not this is going to be thrown out. What's going to happen here? Incredible. Well, folks, I want to get through the rest of my update as we wait for Deaton to take the stage here in about 25 minutes. See, this is what I was talking about. This is Deaton's law firm right here, Crypto Law US. Every attorney we have consulted with agrees that the deadline was last night. It is not the first time that a federal agency has skipped a court deadline. It would also not be the first time that the SEC under Gary Gensler acted as if the rules or the law do not apply to them. So, I mean, it's probably going to get accepted. So this is it, right? This is it. And Stuart Aderati just mentioned too that just the briefings on this are going to take us till, I think, June or July 2025. So just the briefings in this process is going to take us out till next year. Now, Mr. Huber is still making fun of us and trolling the XRP community. He shows the classic meme of all the politicians, George W. Bush and all those guys laughing, right? All the suits laughing at us. They said the SEC must meet deadlines. Yeah, not this SEC, right? You know, thankfully, though, this SEC is starting to run into some judges that are checking them, right? They are starting to run into some judges and really some companies and some individuals that are willing to put up a fight against the SEC. Now, like I said, Gary Gensler was trolling us tonight. He puts out a post here. Why does the SEC take time when developing public policies? And it's so cringe. It's so bad. Do you guys want me to play this or not? I'm going to check the comments. Should I play this clip or not? Because the reason why I brought this up, Gary Gensler, while they're waiting and they file their appeal late, puts this tweet out explaining why they take time developing public policies. And he gives us the normal runaround of, oh, we need time for public comment. And we love the public comment, right? Just come on in. Just come on in. Right? Truly incredible. Gary Gensler, listen in.
So I've never been asked to come on Jimmy Kimmel Live, but I wonder if he'd have me on if I read some mean tweets. Oh, nope, can't read that one out loud. Not that one either. Okay, here's one. All talk, no action. Okay, could be worse. Here's another, blah, blah, blah.
A whole lot of that.
Here's one more. SEC at work with a GIF of a tortoise walking really slowly. Wait, is it pronounced GIF or GIF? Anyway, I'm starting to see a theme here. In fact, I've noticed that a lot of folks on Twitter wonder why the Securities and Exchange Commission proposes so many new rules rather than simply pass them. I'm passionate about reforming our markets so that they work best for you, the public. But you see, there's a law we rely on to go through a process. It's called the Administrative Procedure Act. This law governs how federal agencies like the SEC can develop new policies. So how does it work? Well, you might recall the Schoolhouse Rock song.
Okay, I just have to cut it off. It's just too much, right? It makes the hairs stand up on you. You just like, you get the ick, right? It's just like listening to that guy, right? Oh my goodness. What is it? The Procedural Act. Yeah, everything's by the book with them as they file their appeal in the SEC versus Ripple lawsuit a day late, right? Who cares though? It's the SEC. They can do whatever they want and get away with it. Wrong. And that's where they ran into John Deaton. That's where they ran into this community. And this is the problem that they now face. Now, as I've been talking about, this whole deal with John Deaton is going viral. And this is not just XRP talk. This is John Deaton against Elizabeth Warren. I'm seeing it getting shared out by folks that have nothing to do with crypto, right? This is getting shared out onto platforms across X and others, getting national-wide coverage. It's actually getting worldwide coverage, right? This little Senate race in one little state of America is getting worldwide coverage. And I think that the implications are, it's justified because the implications are that massive, right? If Elizabeth Warren gets in and she gets to continue with this agenda of anti-crypto, it's not just anti-crypto, it's anti-sound money. This is why so many of us are so worried about Elizabeth Warren. It's not just our crypto. She wants to remove our ability to self-custody crypto. What do you think she wants to do with our precious metals? And I ain't just talking about the gold and the silver either. You know what I'm talking about. I mean, this is the problem. But the good news, just like the SEC ran into the XRP army and John Deaton, Elizabeth Warren and her political machine, as strong as it is, it's running into a beast, a Marine in John Deaton that she could not handle on that debate stage. I'm going to play you guys a couple clips here. Listen in. This is all going viral right now. Mario Nafal, 344,000 views, one after another. Epic takedown of Elizabeth Warren by John Deaton. And this is powerful, folks.
To go after them on overdraft fees, where folks like JP Morgan Chase were making more than $1 billion a year off people who were struggling making it day to day. I'm in those fights, but I think crypto ought to have to follow the same rules as everybody else.
Briefly,
I wish
I'd like to
Senator
move
Warren
on.
would attack inflation the way she attacks crypto. I wish she would attack securing the border the way she's focused on crypto. You know, she's so focused on crypto. She had the CEO of JP Morgan Chase available for questioning, and they had financed the largest child sex trafficking operation in history with Jeffrey Epstein. And you know, Senator Warren didn't ask a single question. She wanted to talk about crypto because she's so hyper-focused. Now, I know that because I was raped as a child for a period of 2 years, I might be a little more sensitive to those child rape victims. But I want to ask Senator Warren, why would you not ask one question? JP Morgan Chase settled for $290 million to these rape victims. They had to settle with the U.S. Virgin Islands. And Senator Warren doesn't ask a question. You want to know why? Because a former Democrat president's involved, because her donors are involved, because people that she knows are involved. Again, loyalty to an agenda, loyalty to a party. I come in and I want transparency on everything. I'd like her to answer the question on behalf of all those rape victims, though.
So, look, I have stated.
And you already know that she didn't go on to answer that question about the victims. You already know that. And I'm going to show you right here, too. This moment right here is when she knew she was toast. He was going off on here as he was finishing up this 60-second clip, and she just put her head down. She couldn't even look at the cameras anymore. She just put her head down. She knows. She knows it's true. You can just see it in her. You could see how uncomfortable she was. These politicians are not used to, and they've been able to, live without facing questions like this. The media will never do it. We saw what just took place yesterday when Kamala finally showed up on an opposing network on Fox News. We saw how that disaster went. Well, it was just like what took place on Tuesday with Elizabeth Warren here, when she actually got pressed on these issues by a guy who, as she wants to, just like with Kamala, Brett Baier asked her a question, what's going on here? And she says, well, Donald Trump is running for president. It's like, well, okay, we get that, but you guys are in office right now. You guys are supposed to be in control. How can you justify where we're at right now? Well, Donald Trump is running for president. Okay. In the similar fashion, Elizabeth Warren, why haven't you done anything? Right? She comes up with all these excuses and she says, oh no, we passed all these bills, Inflation Reduction Act, all these other bills, all the bills that are bipartisan, sell out America bills. And when it is time to parade the CEO of the big banks in and Jamie Dimon, right? And they're all going to be tough and they're going to ask him tough questions. And you watch Elizabeth Warren in the sound piece. She gets 5 minutes with him. She gets to act real tough, ask him some tough questions about the overdraft fees, maybe make some other political statement while she's at it. But as John Deaton asked, as he mentioned, why didn't you ask? Why didn't you step up for the women then? When you had an opportunity to ask him something that might be a little bit worse, might be a little bit more important than the little bit of money that JP Morgan, the relative little bit of money that JP Morgan makes off of overdraft fees. Do they make more from overdraft fees or funneling crimes against humanity? And just like he finished up here, right, when she bowed her head down, you ain't going to talk about it because it involves your former president, many former presidents, many other politicians, many other heads of state, many other CEOs. There's a lot of people in your world that are involved, and that's exactly why you play around with overdraft fees. It's a joke, and it makes the real Americans absolutely sick that these folks, not only do they not get anything done, right, but that they want to pretend to be the champions of these causes. You ain't the champion of nothing besides selling out the American people. As I said, it's only been bipartisan bills where they get a bunch of rhinos to sell out. These same Republicans, I dislike and disapprove of what some of these Republicans have done just as much as the Democrats. It's equal. I have equal criticisms for both parties. In fact, the Republicans, they're lying. At least with some of the Democrats, they're very clear with their program. They're just out in the open. With these rhino Republicans, they want to pretend to be conservatives and have values until it's time to sell out America. And here we are, 33 trillion in national debt, 120 trillion in unfunded liabilities. And there's no sign of stopping this until we run into John Deaton, until we start to actually press her. Now we're getting close here, folks. We got about 14 minutes to go till this debate starts. Let's listen in on this clip right here.
I'm a father of 3 daughters. I'm incapable of supporting a law that would restrict the freedoms and privacy of my own daughters. Now, let me tell you, remember, I keep saying pay attention to what they do. Senator Warren was in the Senate on June 22nd when that Dobbs decision came down. They had the presidency, the House, the Senate. Where was the Roe bill? You want to know what John Deaton would have done? John Deaton, as a Republican, would have said, I demand that we vote on this and put every U.S. senator on notice. Where do they stand? Senator Warren, they don't want to do that. Why? Because it might make a Democrat in West Virginia uncomfortable. It might make a Democrat in another state. She's guilty of exactly what she said Donald Trump's guilty of. They didn't want to settle the abortion issue. They wanted it divisive. They wanted it as an election issue. Otherwise, Senator Warren would have wrote the Roe bill and got on the Senate floor and demanded that it be voted on. She didn't then. She won't next time.
Rebuttal.
And it was one point after another, folks. I asked Grok to summarize the first debate so we could go back and look at all of these issues. And they covered housing and economy, healthcare and big pharma, abortion rights, immigration and national security, political strategy and national issues, personal and political attacks was also mentioned, and then debate reception. While Warren maintained her focus on national implications of the election, Deaton's approach seemed to resonate with viewers looking for a more local and personal touch in politics, though he was also critiqued for some of his remarks. What's there to critique John on, right? When you look at his solutions, okay, if there's one thing that you could be critical of, it would be, well, I don't think that your solution's going to work. I have a different solution, which is what our conversation should be about when it comes to politics, right? It should be about, here's the problem. What's your solution? Well, that's your solution. Here's my solution. But instead, right, these folks, right, they want to criticize John for even bringing up some of these points. And she kept on wanting to revert it back to, well, you're just a mega Republican. This is the same tactics that Trump is using. And it's like, Elizabeth, you're not sitting on the stage with Donald Trump. This is John Deaton. This is somebody who's not friendly with Trump, right? Who's disavowed some of the things that Trump's actually done. He's been critical of Trump, just like he's ready to be critical of you. He's ready to be critical of D's, R's, doesn't matter, because he's an American first. This is the energy that we need. But when I look across all these issues and all the solutions, right, for Elizabeth, she should be talking about the solutions that she's already provided. And it's funny because she tried to mention some. One of them was the Inflation Reduction Act. In regards to the subject of healthcare and big pharma, Warren highlighted her legislative efforts like the Inflation Reduction Act. And you all guys already know the deal. All of these bills, all these acts, whatever they say it is, it's the exact opposite. If it's inflation reduction, it's inflation expansion. Aimed at lowering healthcare costs, particularly prescription. Yeah, we get that. The problem being is that it didn't do what the bill is named. It didn't do what they said it was going to do. Just like so many of these, all it did was add to our debt, and it didn't solve the problem. See, if Elizabeth Warren had been getting anything done for all of these issues, she would have been able to say, here's where we made progress. Here's where we, tried this. And she tried to, of course, for the things that they weren't able to get progress on, what do? They blame the Republicans. Oh, we were going to do this, but the Republicans stopped us. And that's exactly where John Deaton just pressed her. He said, no, you wanted to make this an issue. You had an opportunity. What would he have done? Made every single one of them in DC put your vote on the line. Yay, nay, yes, no, up, down. Make it so simple and black and white where you stand on these issues instead of making it a political issue that just causes more division in our country at the end of the day. How do we move past this towards the solutions that are actually going to do something? And I think that that's what John's focused on. The only, criticisms I think would be fair of John. He was on point all night. His messaging's great. The way that he handled himself up there was fantastic. The only thing is maybe you have a better solution, which amen to that. May the best solution win, which is why it usually works to get government the hell out of the way and allow the private sector to fulfill the needs of the people. Capitalism works when you get the cronies out of there. Now, folks, we are less than 10 minutes away from this debate taking place here tonight. I'm going to be circling back here through Twitter real quick. I want you guys to drop me comments down below. I want to do Q&A. I want to get any updates on the lawsuit, on the appeal here while we're waiting, but less than 10 minutes to go. If you guys haven't already, please make sure that you like this video. You're sharing it out far and wide. We got to get this one out here for John Deaton, for America, for XRP, for a level playing field, for government accountability. The SEC has filed its Form C detailing issues they plan to seek appeal for in the Ripple case. Those issues are Ripple's programmatic sales of XRP, Brad and Chris's alleged aiding and abetting of those programmatic sales on digital asset trading platforms, their personal offers and sales, Ripple's distribution of XRP to employees. They are not appealing the monetary penalty of $125 million or Judge Torres' decision not to grant disgorgement. Okay, so they're basically appealing on everything besides the penalty and besides no disgorgement. Trump says Dennis, another super chat. Thank you, Dennis. I appreciate you. If Trump loses, Ripple moves offshore to IPO. It's going to be incredible to watch. It's going to be incredible to watch where investment dollars flow depending on how this election goes right now. Right? Okay. So it looks like folks were able to read. I don't know what. I was reading some addendum and I thought maybe that was like a summary of the issues, and it only listed off Brad and Chris's distributions and the other distributions from Ripple. But it looks like, kind of as we expected, they're basically appealing on everything besides the penalty and besides the disgorgement. I do wonder though if they make the case that another penalty should be assessed if they win on appeal, right? If they win on appeal, I wonder if at that point they would add or try to add on monetary value as well. We'll have to get the breakdown from the lawyers on this one. Yeah. Now, according to Polymarket, Republicans are now favored to win the presidency, Senate, and House. This is according to Polymarket. Now, it's been very interesting to watch the betting markets because there's a lot of back and forth right now. How legit are they? How much value should be put on these betting markets? They're not even U.S. folks, right? This platform is not available for U.S. investors, or in this case, gamblers. Call it whatever you want. So it's not U.S. voters that are participating in this, but I think that it does give you a good glimpse of kind of the market perception of, who's going to win this race. And so right now, Trump heavily favored, and it looks like according to the other local races as well, that the Republicans are favored according to this betting market. How valuable is that? Is there something there? We'll have to, end up seeing come election day. But for the time being, we'll be watching that closely. I got to make sure I got my link here ready to go. Let's see. Comments, questions. How are we doing tonight? Hope you guys are doing well. Everybody's probably upset about the appeal. Now, it's so strange here. The link that I had for the debate has been removed. So let me look back here and see. There we go. Okay, we got this one here. So we are good. Let me adjust this real quick. Perfect. We got the webcam and good. Everything is good. We are dialed in, and we are 3 minutes and 20 seconds away from showtime. Breaking news within the last 20 minutes, the SEC has filed their appeal in the Ripple versus SEC lawsuit. What is happening on the charts right now, though? 546. So XRP is basically just sideways right now. Bitcoin is too, right? We're basically just sideways. We've moved up a little bit since I started the stream. We were at 67,200. Now we're at 67,400 for Bitcoin. For XRP, we were at like 54.5. Now we're at 54.6. So the whole market kind of bumped back up. So that's going to be interesting to watch there. No way. Neil Hartner just said that they backdated the submission. Nothing to see here. So did they back? No way. Date October 16, 2024. Did they really? Yeah, because the docket entry here is on October 17th. They backdate it. Hey, when you're the SEC, what does it matter, right? Holy cow, folks. You can't make this stuff up. Unbelievable. Meta Lawman, the SEC has filed the Form C a day late in my view. So he agrees that it is a day late. And we already know what they're appealing on. Ripple's programmatic sales through exchanges, Ripple's distribution of XRP to employees and others, Garlinghouse and Larson sales of XRP on exchanges. And he said it's mildly surprising that they did not appeal the $0 ruling on disgorgement. So it's the precedent that was set in that Govel case on disgorgement, I think, was pretty strong, right? That was a Supreme Court case, I think, wasn't it? Which was a case that basically said no harm, no foul. If no investors lost money, you're not getting disgorgement. You're going to get a civil penalty if you broke the securities laws, but you're not going to get a disgorgement because nobody lost money. And in this case, everybody made money, right? MetaLaw Man says that the document was backdated, but the clerk stamped today. Now, is this an issue that we should fight on, though? I wonder, if it's even worth our time, right? Because I say add it to the red folder. I say add it, right? Add it to the story of the SEC just abusing the law, right? No faithful allegiance to the law. They can't even be on time with their filings, right? And they're appealing on points too that didn't need to be down to the last wire. Like, it wasn't like they didn't have enough time. As soon as the ruling came out, they probably had already made the decision rather quickly. Like, okay, obviously some people say that the decision's been made a long time ago and that this is all a stage. And I agree to an extent on that point, right? This is over, for all intents and purposes, as far as XRP in and of itself not being a security, right? Now, waiting to see what happens here. Am I on the... What is going on? I'm looking at this video right now. I think I got on the Spanish. I think I got on the Spanish one. What is going on? Why do I not have any sound here? This is strange. I was watching it live on YouTube and it says no longer available. Yeah, okay, there's people in the comments of this YouTube video that are saying that there's no sound. Yeah, people in the comments are saying no sound. What is happening? Okay, I'm going to see if I can find another link. This is wild. This is crazy. Now I thought actually I thought that John Deaton had mentioned that there was a C-SPAN article as well. Mikkel has no sound either. Shout out to Mikkel too. I know he was streaming on the debate night the other night too. And then okay, here it is. I got the C-SPAN link. Let's go. Let's go.
Thank you to the cable and satellite
Let's go.
companies who provide C-SPAN to
We got the
viewers
link.
as a public service.
We're watching an ad. There's no sound. No sound. No sound on C-SPAN either. Folks, this is crazy. This debate has started. No sound. Who the hell is running this stream? I mean, I guess we could read the captions. I could read off the captions. The TV version has no sound either.
President Bill Clinton. And listen,
It's coming.
The rec center from the poor kids, it hit home because I live.
They messed this up bad. Whoever's running this one, holy smokes.
And we seem to have lost our signal from this live event. We will work to resolve the issue, and we hope to resume our live coverage shortly.
Okay, we just got a notice from them. They said that we will work to resolve the problem shortly. This is criminal.
400 to 500 are estimated from Iran,
Folks.
from Hezbollah, from Russia and China. It's a national security crisis, but it's a humanitarian crisis. No one can identify with these migrants more than me. I come from extreme poverty. I know what it's like to want a better life. But here's the issue for Senator Warren. She blames it on Donald.
Make sure we share out the stream real quick. Let everybody know that we got the sound. We are live. Share it out. Tap it. Love you guys. Let's go.
Immigration reform bill. Vice President Harris said she will bring back the same exact bill, and Senator Warren still won't vote for it because she's not here enough to know the damage it's doing to this state.
Coming back to you, Senator Warren, a quick follow-up. I just want to note that a recent Suffolk University and Boston Globe poll showed that more than a fifth of likely voters here in Massachusetts do blame Congress for the state's emergency shelter system being put under strain. They also say they blame Congress for now the state being on track to spend more than $1 billion this fiscal year. I understand that the bill was a sinking ship, but if it had come down to your vote, would you have been for or against it?
That's the point. It didn't come down to my vote. Because here's the deal. The Republicans sunk the comprehensive immigration reform back in 2013. The bill that was led by Marco Rubio, Republican, I voted for that bill, and we got enough people together to do comprehensive immigration reform. And what happened? It went over to the House, and extremist Republicans said, no, we want to keep this as an election issue. It's exactly what Donald Trump did in 2016, 2018, 2020, 2022, and 2024. Yes, we need comprehensive immigration reform, but we need to negotiate a bill that actually gives that to us and that doesn't let extremist Republicans continue to block actually making change in this area. Look, Mr. Deaton wants to talk about drug cartels. He wants to talk about Iran terrorists. But what he doesn't want to talk about is one way that we could actually help cabin that some, and that is to put rules in place on crypto that are actually used by the drug traffickers, the terrorists, and Iran.
Senator,
all of the bad guys.
Mr. Deaton,
I hope I get the same amount of time. Listen, to the voters out there, Senator Warren in the last two debates is talking about 2013 and Marco Rubio, and she voted for some bill a decade ago. Senator, the voters need a senator today. They don't need a senator reminiscing about some vote that didn't actually happen and get passed in 2013. So listen, the bottom line for everybody out there is Senator Warren has the same exact position as Donald Trump. Do nothing. And here's what I want the voters to know, that the bill was not perfect. I can assure you that. I'd like to see more. I want to see legal immigration expanded more and then have a zero tolerance for illegal immigration. But Senator Warren is so extreme, she objects to President Biden placing a $2,500 per cap per day. She doesn't want that. She supports open borders because she doesn't know our airports, our train stations, our ERs, our urgent cares, everything's being maxed and stressed out. And Senator Warren's not here enough to know that. She should answer the question now. If Vice President Harris said she's going to bring back the same exact bill, Senator, will you vote for it?
Look, if it's the same exact bill, then I'll certainly take a hard look at it, especially if it's not already dead. But understand this. When a bill is already dead, part of what you do when you vote is you're signaling where you want to go on the negotiations. I made clear in every speech I gave, in every time I talked about this, that it is not enough to do half of it. We also need, if we're going to do this, to do it right, we need full reimbursement for what the states are spending, and we need to make sure we have a pathway to citizenship. If you're going to negotiate for that, then you got to be in there willing to negotiate.
Senator Warren, that's time. Mr. Deaton, we have a lot to get to.
No, I know, but let me just add.
We're going to move along. We have a lot to get to.
We do have to, forgive me, Mr. Deaton, the next question heads to you. You suggested, this is something you want to talk about, I know, from the last debate. In the last debate with Senator Warren, you suggested that the aid that the United States has provided in connection with the war in Ukraine, nearly $200 billion, would have been better spent on domestic priorities. But if we had gone that route, wouldn't it have guaranteed that Russia would have taken over Ukraine? And wouldn't it have put a number of countries in Eastern Europe, many of which are our allies, at grave risk moving forward?
To the voters out there, Ukraine war is the single biggest issue in this election, period. One mistake, and we're at World War III. Listen, I was in the Marine Corps for 7 years. I taught generals and admirals at the Naval War College. And as a military trained officer, I can't tell you what our plan is in Ukraine because I don't think we have a plan. One day they tell us no American-made missile will land in Russia. The next week they tell us that might happen. Vladimir Putin says if it does happen, then it's war and nuclear options are on the table. This is frightening. We spent $200 billion and it's a stalemate at best. And many people believe that Russia is winning, and you can see it on Zelensky's face when he's here begging for more money. Look, my vote will have to be earned like any other vote. And of course, I favor democracy, but we got to know what the plan is. And to the warmongers in Washington saying Ukraine's going to win is a plan, that's not a plan. That's a hope. That's a wish. $200 billion, we would have had universal pre-K for the country for 10 years and $50 billion left off. We could have spent Medicaid money and expanded Medicaid in the states that didn't adopt it, giving millions of more people health insurance for 20 years. Okay, you know, it's been 30 years since Tupac said it, but I'm going to say it now. They got money for war, but can't feed the poor.
Senator Warren, you have 90 seconds.
So keep in mind that what Mr. Deaton has already said is that he would not fund Ukraine. Look, I sit on the Senate Armed Services Committee. I have been to Ukraine. I have met more than once with President Zelensky. The Ukrainians are fighting the frontline war for democracy. Anyone who thinks that we can turn just our backs on Ukraine and that Vladimir Putin won't take the whole country, and after he takes that country, take another and another and another, is just kidding themselves. I want to give real credit here actually to Joe Biden, because he's somebody who pulled together all of the nations of Europe to say we are going to support Ukraine, because we understand that if Putin takes Ukraine, he's coming for Poland, he's coming for Estonia, he is coming for the other nations in Europe. We are a partner for Ukraine as they fight for democracy. And I think that's powerfully important. You know, this is the question we have to ask ourselves is why are these handful of Republicans who've turned their backs on Ukraine? And the answer is because Donald Trump is still angry with Ukraine because Ukraine wouldn't help him try to dig up dirt on Joe Biden back when Donald Trump was president. Remember that originally the Republicans were all in for Ukraine, and then this extremist group broke off and said, no, 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 Donald Trump doesn't like it, so they want to turn their backs on a nation that's an ally.
We have to leave it there with you at the moment, but Mr. Deaton, just to be clear, if you were elected to the Senate, would you be a no vote on any future considerations of aid for Ukraine?
No, I didn't say that. I said my vote has to be earned. Her vote is taken for granted. I want to know what the plan is, just so the American people know this. In the first month of the invasion, Vladimir Putin was willing to back out, go back to Russia, as long as Zelensky agreed that Ukraine would not enter NATO. Why was that deal turned down? Why was it turned down? Now, I don't have the briefings that Senator Warren's getting, but I want to know what the plan is. All I'm saying is the American people deserve to know what the plan is. And just coming back every 6 months and giving billions and billions and billions of dollars when people can't pay their rent, I just want to know the plan, and no one is articulating the plan. The American people deserve transparency. For 50 plus years, it wasn't in America's vital interest for Ukraine to be in NATO. Why is it so important today? I want that answer. Maybe the senator can share with us why it is so vital in America's interest that we need that Ukraine needs to be a member of NATO.
30 seconds for the last word on this.
So let's be clear. Mr. Deaton has already been quoted in the press saying that he will not support funding for Ukraine.
That's not true.
Well, that's what the press has said.
Well,
but
find it now.
He says he wants to know the plan, then we'll make the plan clear. And that is, we are going to push back and fight back against Vladimir Putin's invasion of a neighbor. This is a violation of international law. And if Mr. Deaton wants to be an appeaser, then he can take that label. But we stand up and fight back for the boundaries that exist, and we do not support Vladimir Putin taking over Ukraine.
We have to move on to the next question.
We're going to move on to a different topic, and one that's of local importance here in Western Massachusetts. A long talked about issue here is east-west or west-east rail, expanded passenger rail service between Boston and the western part of the state. Some people say this would provide not just transportation options, but also could unlock jobs and housing opportunities as well. Senator, I'll start with you first for the next 90 seconds. If you're reelected, what will you do to help make this a reality?
So I am all in on East-West Rail. I think it will fundamentally transform not just the economy in Western Mass, but for every part of Massachusetts. Look, I'll tell you what it's going to take to get it done. I work with Richie Neal on this, and we are now laying the foundation for this. We've been working on this for years. But here's the problem. Republicans have blocked doing a really big infrastructure bill. And the kind of money we're going to need for East-West Rail to get it right and make it work is going to take a significant investment. Remember when Donald Trump was president, how Infrastructure Week was the punchline to a joke on late night television? And that was because you couldn't get the Republicans to come along and actually build up the kind of infrastructure we need. We've had underinvestment in infrastructure for years. Finally, in the 2 years that that Joe Biden was president and Democrats had control of both the House and the Senate, we got the biggest infrastructure package in history actually passed through. And that means we have started the money for building out the plans for East-West Rail. I know that Richie Neal is committed to this. I am committed to this. We know the governor is committed to this. We're going to get the money together, and we will get this done.
Mr. Deaton, you have 90 seconds to respond.
To the voter, during this debate and last debate, every time Elizabeth Warren speaks in her sentence, there's three things. There's a verb, there's a noun, and then there's Trump in it. And you're going to see that repeatedly. But on this specific issue, obviously, I believe this is very critical for Western Mass. And this is what it could do for the entire state, right? We have such a housing problem in Massachusetts. In Greater Boston, it's $980,000 for the median home price. If you go statewide, it's $650,000. That's $200,000 more than the national average. So people are being priced out of the economy. In this state, we are now the second most expensive state to live in for working families. And I see incorporating Western Mass as a way to alleviate that. So yes, obviously it's going to come down to funding, but Senator Warren and I certainly can agree that we need to invest in Western Mass. Also, alternative energy, it's screaming here in Western Mass to be a part of the alternative energy, renewable energies, wind, solar, even a very small limited nuclear here in Western Mass. We could get hydro from Canada, maybe even go over the Berkshires and get it here. And that would create jobs, and it would help the economy. So I'm all for it. We've got to do it. It would alleviate all kinds of issues, not just for Western Mass, but for the entire state.
Senator, you have 1 minute.
So I am glad to hear Mr. Deaton endorse East-West Rail. In fact, I want to hear everybody in Massachusetts endorse East-West Rail. And that's why I'm in the fight alongside Richie Neal to make sure we get all of our colleagues in Washington to sign off on this so we can actually get the funding for it. And part of the way we get that funding is when Democrats can stay in the majority in the Senate and in the House in order to get this done. But I want to hit something else that Mr. Deaton raised, and that is housing prices. Absolutely right. Housing prices are out of control. We've been sitting around for 40 years talking about how housing prices keep going up and up and up, and it has truly reached crisis proportions. It is time for the federal government to make an investment and to partner up. And that's why I have mayors all around Western Mass, including in Pittsfield, saying, I want to be part of that. The Warren plan is a plan to build more housing and bring down costs. Mr. Deaton's plan is to say, let the private market fix it, like it's fixed it for the last 40 years.
Mr. Deaton, you have the final 30 seconds on this one.
Yeah, listen, the fundamental difference between Senator Warren and I is she believes that the government is the solution to all problems of society. And she believes that every issue, I'm surprised she didn't say, oh, we're going to fund it by tax the wealthy, because every single thing she says, climate change, housing, education, every issue is tax the wealthy, right? And she didn't say that, and I'm curious, but listen, the bottom line is the government is the problem most of the time. Builders are taking 2 years just to get building permits. We got to cut the red tape
Mr. Deaton,
and tax credits for those builders.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to the issue of public trust. And Mr. Deaton, this is for you. Because you haven't held elected office, we don't know much of your record. What we do know comes mostly from your book and the stories that you've shared publicly. One of them is regarding an incident involving one of your siblings, where you misled law enforcement, knowing that you wouldn't be called to testify against her as a Marine Corps prosecutor living in a different state. In your book, you said, quote, although I lied to the cops, I wasn't under oath, and I would never testify against my sister for something she didn't do. My question is, what should the public make of your willingness to break rules, and in this specific case, lie to law enforcement? Why should people trust you?
Well, listen, I would encourage all those voters to read my book, and they would learn that I come from extreme poverty, a single mother on welfare and food stamps, living in one of the single worst dangerous neighborhoods in America. My mother was stabbed when I was 6 in front of me. For 2 years, I was raped by a predator in the neighborhood. At 17, my best friend died in my arms from a drive-by shooting. And the first day of high school, I had a gun shoved in my mouth, so I was a high school dropout. And I got lucky. A principal of a tiny Catholic high school gave me a chance, and quite frankly, saved my life. And he made me earn it, and I worked my way through high school, and then at college, and then law school here in Boston. And the Marine Corps chose me over all the other law schools to represent the Commonwealth. And for 27 years of active duty, and for 22 years, I've been representing working families. Senator Warren represents bankers. I represent plumbers, going against the biggest corporations in the world. And I've done it for cancer victims. I am a small business owner. I am a proud father of 3 daughters, and I am the American dream. And when you look at the Senate, you don't see someone like that. You don't see someone who's overcome poverty, someone who knows what the daily struggles of everyday people are. I do, and I think it's time we send someone like that to the Senate. My sister was OD'd twice. She was flatlined twice. I had a decision. Do I save my sister's life? And I chose that decision to save her life. And my sister texted me that I saved her life. Tina, how are you? I know you're watching. She texted me, John, I'm proud of you. You did a good job in the first debate. I'm the American dream. I know what it's like to struggle, and I will work for everyone that's watching this right now. I will dedicate my life to make your life better.
Time. Senator Warren, you have 90 seconds.
I think this is a question of trust, and I'm glad you asked that question. You know, when John Deaton was arrested for assault at a kids' football game, the arresting officer came up, and John Deaton told him to back off because he, John Deaton, knew all the judges. And when the officer decided that he was going to go ahead, put him in the car, take him downtown, and book him, John Deaton told the officer that he makes so much money that he paid more in taxes every year than the police officer earned in his annual salary. I think there's a fundamental question here about who you can trust. And I think you can't trust someone like John Deaton with power. I appreciate that John Deaton grew up in a really poor family and under really difficult circumstances. And I have some sense of what it's like to listen to your mother cry because you can't pay the bills and worried you're going to lose your housing. But the question is, what do you take away from that? For me, I'll tell you exactly what I take away from it. I've spent my whole life fighting for working families. John Deaton, I think we know the story. He takes care of himself first. Take a look at his tax returns. Worth what? Tens of millions of dollars, maybe $100 million. And he couldn't find more than $56 to give to charity across 2 years. There really is a question of who you trust to fight for your family or to fight for themselves. People of Massachusetts know me. They know I'm fighting for them.
Mr. Deaton, I want to give you a chance to respond, but I also want to remind you the question is, why should the public trust you?
The public should trust me. The same thing Vice President Harris said last night when she was interviewed, her life experience and my life experience. Listen, I'm an open book. I wrote a book and I explained all the problems, and I'm not going to get into that. I will tell you this, that the police just endorsed me after reading my book that Senator Warren referenced. I went before them and were questioned, and they agreed with me because the police had an arrest incentive program where they were arresting people based on the number of arrests. You were getting time off and you were getting money, and I sued them and I stopped that, and that practice ended. But here's the thing, Senator Warren, instead of looking at my life and saying, wow, that's a good example of someone who came from dirt poverty, who was raped as a child for 2 years, who saw his mother crawl on the ground and thought he was going to lose her at 6 years old, and watched my mother beaten over and over again. You would think she would say, you know what, that's good, but she's back to demonizing everyone. And Senator, let me tell you this. I've made mistakes in my life and I've owned them, but I've never claimed to be someone or something I'm not.
Mr.
Can
Deaton,
you say
that's
the
time.
same?
Senator
Can you
Warren
say the same?
Gets the final 30 seconds here.
So let's be clear here. This arrest at a kid's football game, when he told the police officer just how much he thought the police officer was worth, is not something that happened back in John Deaton's youth. It happened just not too long ago, living in Rhode Island. And what he did after he did this with the police arrested him and prosecuted him. He turned around and sued the police, and he lost that lawsuit. That's the part John Deaton doesn't. That's the part John Deaton does not want you to see. He is not someone we can trust.
Senator Warren, that's time.
I have to.
And we're going to move on.
I need to address that. Give me 10 seconds. 10 seconds. That is what Senator Warren said is not true. It's not true.
Is that what
the case is still
Mr.
pending.
Deaton, that's enough. Mr. Deaton, we need to move on. We have a lot to get to. I understand where you're coming from, but we have to go to the next question, which is for Senator Warren. During an earlier debate this week, your challenger said that you were partially responsible for 2 hospitals, Kearney Hospital and the Neshoba Valley Medical Center, closing. 2 questions. How do you respond to these accusations, and what role did you play in trying to keep these medical facilities open specifically?
So understand why these hospitals closed. They closed because private equity came in and sucked $1 billion in value out of these, what originally had been not-for-profit hospitals. Think about how our nurses, what they could have done if that $1 billion had been reinvested in those hospitals. But they didn't. They took all of that out of the hospitals and basically used it to buy yachts and airplanes. Look, I am fighting to make sure that private equity does not eat out more of our healthcare system. Mr. Deaton's complaint is that I don't think we ought to have one more giant company come in and buy up our hospitals. We need to get this profit motive out of our healthcare system. And it's true for our hospitals. It is true for our pharmacies. It is true for our doctors' practices. It is true for our nurses, people who are trying to provide care. And keep in mind, if we end up with Republican control of the United States Senate, these are people who have tried over and over and over to repeal the Affordable Care Act. Donald Trump says he's coming for it again. That will cost Massachusetts billions of dollars and result in more hospital closures here. We need to support our healthcare system, not tear it apart the way Mr. Deaton and the extremist Republicans want to do.
Mr. Deaton, you have 90 seconds. I'd like to ask you, what could or should the senator have done in this instance to keep these 2 hospitals open?
The first thing she should have done is stayed out of it, because, listen, there was a deal on the table. United Healthcare was going to buy the hospitals. She objected to it immediately, just to object. And we lost Carney and we lost Neshoba. Now pregnant women in central Massachusetts have to go 40 minutes to drive to give a birth because she wanted to fit her brand of going against companies. Just like when Amazon was going to buy iRobot, Senator Warren objected to it and said, I object, and hundreds of people lost jobs. She talks about trust. I hope that Senator Warren, she talks about trust, yet she's proven to be corrupt in Washington. Senator, are you going to address the fact that she sits on the banking committee and Gary Gensler, who she's supposed to oversee and keep responsible, hold him accountable, she gave him not only the questions, but the answers to what she was going to say. She said, here, I'm going to ask you these questions under oath, and I want you to give these answers, okay? And then he did it. And then Senator Warren gets on TV and says, don't take my word for it. Gary Gensler said it. When she's the one that told him. That is corruption to its core. And Senator Warren's guilty. I prosecuted as a federal prosecutor under 18 U.S.C. 1622 suborning perjury cases. And I could convict Senator Warren like that on this. And I hope she addresses that because, Senator, you were a law professor. And I'm going to ask you, when you give the student the exam and the answers and then give that student an A, would that professor get fired?
Your minute, Senator.
So let's start with healthcare, where this question started.
You're not going to deal with Gary Gensler?
Let's start with healthcare, where this started.
Exactly.
And that is that twice now, my opponent has alleged that United Health had offered to buy the hospitals. Those are not the facts. They offered to buy up the doctor's practice. The hospitals were out there loose and on their own. Go back and check the facts. But here's the deal. Listen to what he says each time. What is the solution to the fact that our hospitals have been hollowed out by private equity? Bring in the 9th largest corporation in the world to just buy them up and squeeze more profits out of healthcare here in Massachusetts. What is the answer to every problem for Mr. Deaton? And that is bring in more people who can squeeze out more profits. He wants to talk about corruption. Let's use the 80, 90, 100 rule. 80% of Mr. Deaton's wealth is tied up in crypto. 90% of his funding for this campaign is coming from crypto.
Senator, that's
and
time.
100%
Senator,
of his
that's
loyalty in Washington
Mr. Deaton, you have 30 seconds to respond.
That is corruption.
Senator, thank you.
It's just starting out. Yeah, listen, you notice that she didn't even mention, I called her corrupt, and she wouldn't even address it. She won't address it. She won't address the Epstein stuff either. She just wants to kick it under the carpet and pretend that it didn't happen. Senator, I can tell you this. I come from extreme poverty. I made all my money that I've made. I made it before I went to Washington. What people are sick of are people like you going to Washington, D.C. broke and then coming back 10 years later and being multi-millionaires. And so I don't think you should ever condemn anyone in the private sector who came from poverty and food stamps to make it be successful. And when you say I didn't donate, Senator, I sued the SEC. I won a Lawyer of the Year award,
Mr. Deaton,
Consumer Advocate of the Year,
Mr.
Freedom
Deaton,
of Defender Award, because I did all that work pro bono. That's called pro bono work.
Wait,
something you didn't.
Senator, Mr. Deaton, we need to move
for
on.
Crypto? Are you kidding
for
me
token
that
holders,
counts as a
small-time
charitable contribution?
investors that you abandoned.
Senator Warren, Mr. Deaton, we need to move along here. Staying on the issue of health care, Mr. Deaton, this goes to you. You have said you are the pro-choice candidate in this race, and you told our GBH colleague Katie Lannon in a recent interview that putting a bill on the floor that codifies Roe v. Wade would be a top priority for you if you were elected. You have also said, though, that you don't support late-term abortions, and that is part of the ongoing debate about what a federal abortions rights bill should and should not include, along with questions about fetal viability and religious objections for healthcare workers who don't want to be involved in abortions. Can you please describe what specific provisions you would include in a federal bill to codify Roe v. Wade that your Republican colleagues would vote for?
Well, I can't tell you whether the Republican Party colleagues would vote for it, but I can tell you what John Deaton would do, something that Elizabeth Warren hasn't done. She talks about it, but she doesn't do it. And what I would do is I'd look to Massachusetts. Massachusetts actually got this right, which gives a woman a right up to 22 weeks to have unrestricted access to abortion. After that period of time, she's not allowed unless it's for her health reasons or there's a fetal anomaly. And we're talking about the viability issue around that time. And so that's what I support. But listen, there are 6 people who are responsible for the overturning of Roe. Donald Trump, Brett Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett, Neil Gorsuch, Harry Reid, and Senator Elizabeth Warren. And right now I'm going to have my campaign staff, I want you to post the 2013 media advisory by Elizabeth Warren where she bragged that she was going to push Harry Reid to get rid of the filibuster, even though they were told that Republicans would then use it for the Supreme Court. So you understand, everyone out there, that her fingerprints are all over this Roe decision. The Supreme Court would not look the way it does today if Senator Warren would have honored the fact that in the Senate, it takes hard work. The filibuster rule was in place for over 100 years, and it required compromise. But Senator Warren wanted to say, nope, I got 51. And by the way, she says she's going to codify Roe. You have 51 votes now in the Senate, Senator, so I would encourage you to do it. I'll help you write it if you want me to.
Mr. Deaton, that's time. Senator Warren, your response.
So this comes down to a question of trust. Can you really trust John Deaton? When he was asked who would he vote for Supreme Court, you know who he named? Gorsuch, one of the people who turned over Roe versus Wade, who vetoed Roe versus Wade, who got rid of Roe versus Wade. And what did we know about Neil Gorsuch at the time the vote came up? Well, we knew that as a lower court judge, he'd done the Hobby Lobby opinion, which had restricted access to contraception. We knew that he had come from a list that had been pre-screened as people who would be anti-abortion. And we knew that 50 groups that support access to abortion had opposed Neil Gorsuch. And yet John Deaton says, you know, if I'd had that information, I would have voted for him. And now John Deaton gives us the big defense of the filibuster that keeps us from making Roe versus Wade law of the land. That's the problem. We can't pass it with 52 votes because the Republicans filibuster us. So here's the deal. If Republicans are in control of the Senate, there will be no bill to make Roe versus Wade law of the land. It doesn't matter whether we have 50 votes for it or 51 or 52. With Republican control of the Senate, we will have no bill to codify Roe versus Wade. And that means when they're coming for us in Massachusetts, we have no defense.
Senator, thank you.
That's right? I get 30 seconds, right, on this one, based on the format. Listen, on June 22nd, 1 minute, thank you. In June of 2022, that's when the Dobbs decision came down. Joe Biden was president. They had the House, the Democrats had the House, and they had the Senate. They could have codified it, but Senator Warren didn't do that. She didn't go to the floor and say, I demand that every United States senator take a stand right now. You want to know why? Because they wanted it. Just like Donald Trump wanted immigration as an issue, they wanted it as an election issue for the midterms. And they didn't want to upset maybe Joe Manchin in West Virginia. John Deaton doesn't, I believe in term limits, so I don't subscribe to sitting back trying to maneuver how we can have control this day or that day, or I don't care if there's a senator in West Virginia, a Republican or a Democrat. I don't care about them. I care about Massachusetts. And so John Deaton was in the Senate. As a Republican, I would have stood up and I would have demanded every United States senator take a stand now. That's what advocacy is, not what Senator Warren's talking about.
So
Senator
Mr.
Warren, 30
Deaton
seconds.
needs to recheck his facts. We have voted on Roe versus Wade. And I stood up and said we should vote on this. And the problem we have is because the Republicans filibustered it, we could not get to 60 votes. Yes, we put everyone on record, Democrats and Republicans, on where you are on Roe versus Wade. Mr. Deaton is just wrong. He just doesn't know what's happened here. But listen to him. When he defends the filibuster, what he's doing is saying, don't get anything done in the United States.
Senator Warren,
They could
that's
have ended
time.
the filibuster.
Mr.
They had the
Deaton,
vote.
that's time. We're moving on.
We are going to stay with the court, though, for a moment. The two of you had radically different reactions to a pair of decisions that were handed down this past year. The Chevron doctrine was overturned by the court. It had granted broad authority to regulatory agencies for decades, and the court found that presidents have absolute criminal immunity when it comes to exercising their core powers. Senator Warren, I'd like to start with you and then go to Mr. Deaton. Why do you think these two rulings are so dangerous?
Well, they're dangerous for two reasons. One is that We don't need a dictator in this country. We don't want a dictator. Shoot, we founded this country because we didn't want a king. And yet this extremist Supreme Court has said that Donald Trump can do whatever he wants to do, and as long as he's president, they're not going to interfere, and the law can't interfere. We have a central principle in the United States, and that is no one is above the law. The Chevron doctrine, a little bit down in the weeds here, but the basic notion is that our agencies need to be able to do their work. So, for example, the Environmental Protection Agency needs to be able to set clean air standards. The Department of Education needs to set standards to make sure that our special needs kids are getting the services and help that they need. That's true throughout government. Department of Transportation does landing slots. And yet, what the Chevron doctrine used to do is it said that the courts have to defer. Maybe Congress didn't write down that the parts per million on how much mercury can be in air has to be 0.0003. We left it up to the agency. And what this Supreme Court is doing is they're saying, no, we don't want those agencies to function. We want to grind government to a halt and put all of the power with judges. We can't run our country that way. It will hurt us all.
Mr. Deaton, you cheered Chevron's reversal, and you said, I believe, that the reaction to the immunity ruling was premature, that we should wait and see how things played out. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, listen, remember when I noticed the agency that Senator Warren didn't bring up was the Securities Exchange Commission. Earlier, I just said that I literally looked her in the face and respectfully said that she's corrupt, right? And this proves it. She had Gary Gensler, who oversees the Securities Exchange Commission, the chairman. She's supposed to hold him accountable. So what she did is, because she had a specific agenda in mind, she said, and this is proven by FOIA request, that here are my questions I'm going to ask you to an upcoming hearing under oath, and here's what I want you to say. And then she asked those exact questions, and he gave those exact answers, and they're not truthful. Then Senator Warren goes on CNBC and other stations and says, hey, don't take my word for it. Take the word of the regulator, the expert who's Gary Gensler, who taught at MIT. They were her words. She told him what to say. And Chevron ended that. It ended the regulatory capture from senators that are like Senator Warren, who don't care about the truth, but only care about a specific agenda. I said, as a special assistant United States attorney in the District of Arizona, I prosecuted people under the suborning perjury statutes when you encourage someone to not tell the truth in an official proceeding. She is absolutely guilty of that. And it may seem harsh for me to say it, but it's the truth. And she didn't even respond to it. Maybe now she'll explain to America why that's not corruption.
Senator Warren, you got a minute, and then we go back to you, Mr. Deaton, for a minute.
So Mr. Deaton is just spinning this whole fantasy story. Look, my responsibility is oversight, and I want to make sure that we cover the issues that we need to cover. Nobody said anything that was untruthful, and Mr. Deaton has no evidence of that. But understand this, there's a reason that Mr. Deaton is very, very, very focused on the SEC. And the reason for that is the only agency that seems to have a little wedge on regulating crypto and has held these crypto multi-billionaires accountable when they go out and make wild claims about investments and how it's a great investment to buy crypto. Gary Gensler has been pushing back on that. We need regulations covering crypto. But when we've got the guy who follows the 80-90-100 rule, 80% of his value in crypto, 90% of his funding from crypto, and 100% of his loyalty to crypto, it means that we're not going to have somebody who's going to support the SEC in trying to do their job.
Senator Warren, we have to leave your remarks there. Mr. Deaton, one more minute.
Yes, listen, I sued the United States government because they hurt small-time investors. And you want to know, it went viral. 75,000 individual token holders, not billionaires, people that have $5,000 invested, okay, $2,000 invested. They joined me. 627 of them here live in Massachusetts. And we sued the SEC, and I said that XRP token was legal. The SEC said it wasn't. And Judge Annalisa Torres, who was appointed by Barack Obama, agreed with me, cited my my work, cited the affidavits that I submitted to the court, and ruled in my favor and said Deaton is right, basically, and it gave relief to these individual token holders. Now, she keeps talking about crypto billionaires. Senator Vice President Harris was just donated over 1 million XRP tokens by a crypto billionaire that supports me. So I'm going to ask you, what do the crypto people expect from Vice President Harris that they don't expect from me? That's what I'd like.
That is time.
May I answer that? He asked me a question.
Very, very quickly, 15 seconds, and then 15 seconds to Mr. Deaton, and we're done.
I think it's a problem when any candidate receives 90% of the funding from their campaign from one industry, whether it's the crypto industry, the oil industry, the pharmaceutical industry. So far as I know, Mr. Deaton is now the all-time champion for having gotten the most funding from one.
15 seconds, then we really have to move on.
Warren is absolutely lying. A super PAC. Senator Warren, I have $2 million. $105 is the average donation. I put $1 million of my own money in this race. She's talking about crypto billionaires or somebody who did a fund that's about her. She wanted to ban an industry, and so they
have to move on from this. We could go on for a while. Adam has the next question on a different topic.
Thank you, Adam. I have another question for both of you, and this is part of our Connecting the Commonwealth initiative. And this question comes from our sister station CAI on the Cape and Islands. Massachusetts recently committed New England's largest ever purchase of offshore wind power. At the same time, fishing groups and local communities have raised some concerns about impacts to our oceans and our coastlines. You'll both get an opportunity in this, Mr. Deaton. I'm going to start with you for 90 seconds. Two-part question. Where do you stand on the push to create an offshore wind economy, which has received significant federal funding over the last 4 years? And would you support the pause on offshore wind development demanded by opponents?
Yes, listen, this is a problem where people rush without actually thinking about how to do something. This comes down to where Senator Warren's wrong. She thinks the government is the answer to every solution, when I believe the government is usually the problem. And here's an example. They've created so many regulations that commercial fishermen here in Massachusetts have basically been bankrupt and put out of business. They literally, the Chevron decision that was talked about earlier dealt with the fishermen because the government, people like Senator Warren said, hey, we're going to send someone on your boat and they're going to count how many fish you catch, and you're going to have to pay for it out of your own earnings, even though you're trying to support your family. That's insanity. And that's not how you approach things. And so we have to have renewable energy, in my opinion, has to be focused in the right areas. For example, I brought up Western Mass. I believe Western Mass is the prime place where we could establish renewable energy and revitalize this economy in the state. And that includes wind, that includes solar, that includes hydro, and like I said, it includes a limited amount of nuclear. And so I do support a pause at this point in time, because it's just like when the government said, here's $7.5 billion to build EV charging stations. After 3 years, they didn't have one online, and they've only got 7 right now, and it's $7.5 billion. In the meantime, Tesla in 1 quarter built 359 of them. So of course the private sector's better.
Senator, you have 90 seconds.
So we need to listen to our fishermen. We also need to listen to our native nations about who are affected by offshore wind and offshore wind development. I think it's important that people be compensated. I think it's important that they be fully consulted. But I do not support leaning back on offshore wind. We are in a climate crisis, and offshore wind is one of the ways we're going to work our way out of that. Go down to New Bedford, go out to the Cape, and see the development that's coming from this. Look, this is a big difference between Democrats and Republicans. We don't have somebody here who says he's a climate denier, but he just doesn't want any of the things it's going to take to move us to a clean energy economy. I am very proud of the fact that I helped pass the biggest climate package in the history of the world, and it was paid for by my 15% minimum tax on billionaire corporations that were paying little or nothing, corporations like Amazon. And that has resulted already, you can see it out here in Western Mass, 25 new electric school buses already that we have here. The resilience that we're building right now. This is a part of how we build a clean future. And understand this, I'm proud of what we've done, but it isn't nearly enough. We need to double down on our investments in climate again and again.
Mr. Deaton, you have 1 minute to rebut.
Listen, Senator Warren does nothing but engage in class warfare. You notice that she keeps talking about billionaires. For example, she supported 87,000 IRS agents, and what was her answer? It's for the billionaires. Well, let's talk about something she doesn't like to, which are facts. There's 735 billionaires living in America. They have a cumulative wealth of $4.5 trillion. So, Senator Warren, instead of just taxing them more, let's just take all their money for a second for this conversation. That $4.5 trillion that we take from them, you know what we could do with it? We could pay our interest alone for 4 years on the national debt. Not a dollar goes to education. Not a dollar goes to the climate change. Not a dollar goes to immigration reform. Not a dollar goes to anything. It just goes to interest. And so her slogan of tax the rich on everything is that's just a slogan. And by the way, the 87,000 IRS agents, if it was for the billionaires, we'd only need 735 of them, and they could be assigned to each billionaire all year long.
Thank you, Mr. Deaton. That's time. Senator, you have the final minute.
So understand this, the IRS agents he's talking about are the people who are hired to do enforcement against tax cheats who make more than $400,000 a year. And it is an incredibly successful program. In fact, for every dollar invested, we're getting somewhere between $6 and $10 back in revenues from people who just don't even follow the current law because they know under the Republican regime that the IRS doesn't have the manpower to come after them. Look, John Deaton stands here and tells you who he is. He wants to defend the billionaires, and that makes sense. It's the billionaires who are funding his campaign.
It's not
90% of the money that is moving this campaign forward comes from the crypto industry. And the crypto billionaires are going to expect a big return on their investment if John Deaton can take this Senate seat.
Thank you, Senator. We have a little bit more to get in before we run out of time tonight.
Question for both of you involving political ambition. Senator Warren, if Kamala Harris is successful in her presidential run, would you consider serving in her administration? And if she is not, would you consider running for president again yourself in 2028?
No and no. I am asking the people of Massachusetts to elect me for a 6-year term, and it's the 6-year term here in Massachusetts that I want to serve. And the reason for that is because I have work that I'm doing for the people of Massachusetts, and this is my opportunity to get more of it done. You know, I got the endorsement from the Berkshire Eagle. Thank you very much. I sit on the Senate Armed Services Committee, and we lost our own, Jake Gallagher. And I am working hard to hold the Department of Defense accountable for these ospreys so that other young people don't lose their lives. I've gotten $500 million into our local military installations, mostly in western and central Massachusetts. I brought home more than $20 billion, and it has touched every single community here in western Massachusetts. We've gotten broadband. We've been able to support Soldier On for homeless vets up in Pittsfield, to support the Latino Business Development Group right here in Springfield that supports these young, getting started businesses. I've also been in the fight for climate, which is so important here. You know, I stood in Deerfield in the mud and the muck watching the latest flooding, and I hope everyone's sitting down because I actually work now with Ted
Senator
Cruz
Warren, I'm afraid
to
I
get
have
the
to
rules changed so
stop
that
you right
well, let me
there.
at least explain. So that
No, I'm
FEMA,
afraid I got to move on to
so
Mr.
that
Deaton, but
FEMA
people
can
read about
actually offer disaster
your collaboration with
relief for these
Senator
folks.
Cruz. John Deaton, you have never held elected office before. Why are you starting off with a run for U.S. Senate as opposed to, say, running for a job in the state legislature or even the Bolton Select Board?
Because we're in crisis. We have illegal immigration bankrupting the state. We have an opioid addiction killing Americans. We have a debt crisis. The government's going over a cliff. No one's talking about it. And we have inflation that's pricing Americans out of the economy. But the single greatest crisis we face is a crisis of leadership. You have people like Senator Warren, so divisive, they sit back and they fuel the division amongst us, and that has to change. You know, Senator Warren was asked a question about why is Trump so popular? Why is this race close? You know what she said? She threw her hands up in disgust and said, I just don't get it. I think it's your job, Senator, to get it, because 74 million Americans aren't racist and xenophobes. These are good people who think the country's headed in the wrong direction. And I realize, because I don't support President Trump, that maybe I'm the right messenger for these elites to get them to understand. So here you go. First, every member of Congress, take a look in the mirror, because you're part of the problem. And maybe people are tired of foreign wars. Maybe they're tired of working 50 hours a week and can't pay their bills, or being shocked at the grocery store when they get their energy bill, or that their parks are becoming crime scenes. Or maybe they feel betrayed, Senator, that they watch billions of dollars be spent on migrants who just got here, but we can't save Neshoba. We can't save Kearney. We don't have any for wildfires, and we don't have any for hurricane victims. Maybe they're in disbelief that in today's America, it seems far better to be an illegal migrant than a homeowner in North Carolina who's been here all your life.
Senator
Maybe
Warren,
now you get it, Senator.
30 seconds to rebut.
Look, you just heard John Deaton say he doesn't support Trump. And yet, less than a year ago, when he still lived in Rhode Island, he actually posted online that he would vote for Donald Trump over Joe Biden. He has said that he likes Donald Trump's foreign policy better than he likes Joe Biden's. He has said
drop out of the
that
race
You'll have
today.
30 seconds in a moment, John.
Can I have my time?
Please.
We're claiming my time here. He has said that he likes Donald Trump's foreign policy better than he likes Joe Biden's. He has said that he likes Donald Trump's economic policy better than he likes Joe Biden's. And what is he now wants to come in front of the people of Massachusetts and just tell a different story.
Okay, 30 seconds to you, Mr. Deaton, to rebut, then we'll move on.
Senator Warren just looked you all in the face and lied through her teeth, just like she lied about her heritage, just like how she lied how she got into Harvard. She just now lied to you. I have been the biggest critic of Donald Trump than anyone. Go on my X account and search in Trump. It was published in the Boston Herald of all the things I've said, like you might be the worst human being alive and all of these things. Yet Senator Warren looks you in the face and just makes bold-faced lies. That's why I'm running, to answer your question, to replace people like Senator Warren who do not have a commitment to the truth.
Okay, let's leave that exchange there. We are near the end of the debate, and we're going to shift up the format a little bit, increase the pace. Do a lightning round. I'd love quick answers from each of you on the same questions. Starting with you, Senator Warren, other than Springfield, what is your favorite spot in Western Massachusetts?
Jacob's Pillow.
John Deaton?
Pittsfield, because I think of my clients that I've represented that worked at the GE plant in Pittsfield that had mesothelioma, and I took on General Electric and got victims compensated. Pittsfield.
Okay, I'm going to stay with you for a second. Sure. Name a political role model who is currently in office.
Currently in office?
Currently in office.
I like Amy Klobuchar, for example, because she's a moderate. By the way,
Senator from Minnesota.
Yeah,
okay.
I think she's a moderate.
Senator Warren, political role model currently in office.
You know, I give a lot of credit to President Zelensky, who has been on the front lines for 3 years.
Give him a lot of money, too.
No crosstalk is allowed in this. President Zelensky is your selection.
That's
Thank
right.
you,
Someone
Senator
who's on
Warren.
the front lines fighting for democracy.
Ballot question 4 in Massachusetts would legalize the use of some psychedelics. Senator Warren, do you support question 4?
Yes, but I want to say it's going to take a period to get into it, and we got to get the right regulations in place to make sure people are safe.
John Deaton, how about
you? That last question, I'd go with Nayib Bukele from El Salvador instead of Zelensky. But as relates to this, no, I'd vote no, because we got to deal with our opiate problem, with the fentanyl that's coming across this country, and they're pushing it too far, too fast. And so I'm a no on it.
You're a no on psychedelics.
Except for medical purposes by a doctor.
All right, both of you like me are transplants from elsewhere. What is one thing you really didn't appreciate about Massachusetts until you lived here? John Deaton, you first.
That I didn't appreciate?
That you did not fully appreciate until you actually lived here.
The seafood.
The seafood.
Because I worked illegal seafood for 3 years.
Senator Warren.
Oh, how beautiful the trees are in the fall. I grew up in a part of the world that doesn't have a lot of trees. And Massachusetts, especially out in the Berkshires, is truly magical.
All right, I think final question for both of you. Senator Warren, what kind of candy are you going to be giving out for Halloween?
Mounds and some almond joy, if we can find it. Sometimes it's hard to find.
All right, John Deaton?
Reese cups unless I eat them all.
I was wrong. We have 30 seconds left, so I'll throw one more at you. If you don't win this race, what's your consolation meal going to be, John Deaton?
Probably chicken nuggets with my daughter Layla. This campaign has taken me away from her. Hi, honey.
Okay, Senator Warren, your consolation dinner?
It's probably going to be something at Frank's with French fries on the side. It's a great place in Cambridge. Try it out.
There it is. You can tell my mind is on food. It's getting late. That is going to close our debate. We want to thank the candidates, Senator Elizabeth Warren and John Deaton, for participating in this NEPM and GBH News debate. And thanks as well to our audience. Election Day is November 5th. Make sure you vote. Good night.
All right, folks, there you have it. Deaton versus Senator Warren, round 2. What did you guys think of that? Drop a comment down below. If you guys are still in the chat here, we're pushing almost 3,500 between all of our streams here tonight. Thank you so much for stopping by. Please make sure you like the video, tap it, smack it for me. You guys know what we do. We like the video, we share it out far and wide. And if you're new here, come on in and join us, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Here's the breakdown, folks. Deaton once again completely owned this debate. When we want to get to real solutions, when we want to bring in accountability, every single time he pressed Elizabeth Warren. And I love his strategy in these debates by finishing with the question, because the questions that these moderators won't ask him, and I'm going to make a quick point too. It seemed like, at least for the first half of it, he was given way less speaking time. And in fact, on a couple of the times when he really dropped some bombs on her, it's almost like they cut him off, right? And I do want to make one point too. That one question about him not wanting to snitch on his sister, whatever that story was, which it appeared like it was a pretty serious situation. John had, he was in a tough situation. Complete low blow. Completely ridiculous. A completely uncalled for question. That was a load of BS. And I wish I could really say how I feel about that question, but it was disgusting. And I believe that that was clear coordination between Senator Warren's campaign and those moderators. That was totally uncalled for. And then they turned it back to Elizabeth Warren to ask her some sort of softball. Like, I forget what the questioning was, but it was like they did an absolute low blow on John Deaton. And Elizabeth Warren doing what she does best, making fun of the little guy, demonizing the little guy. She even pressed down on him even harder. It was completely ridiculous. But with that said, John Deaton still held his own, and he still won this debate handedly, putting on a legal debate clinic once again. And I want to make a couple points here. The lies that she spread about him being a big Trumpy, like he said, show me where I said that I would have voted for Donald Trump. Deaton even mentioned, right, his tweet about saying that Donald Trump might be the worst human being ever, right? I think that there's a couple tweets that maybe John wishes that he maybe could have pulled back, but at least he doesn't shy away from it. He says, yeah, that's a tweet that I made at this point, and that, proves that I'm not the mega Trumpy that you try to make me out to be. And she's doing that because she doesn't want to debate him on these real issues. The private equity planes. Now, I wish that he would have mentioned this, because we see Elizabeth Warren hopping off the PJ, hopping off the private jets, while she wants to criticize the private equity funds that took away those hospitals, right? Stripped out the profit, took away the hospitals so that they could have more yachts and more private jets. Well, the only problem there is that she's probably making private jet travel more expensive for Elizabeth Warren, because she likes to, travel on the PJ as well. So that's the real problem there for Elizabeth Warren, right? Is the private equity boys are taking up some of the PJ planes that she likes to fly around on herself as well. Now, to that point, why is profit so evil, right? She wants to continue to attack private equity for gutting out these hospitals. And I don't know that situation, so I can't speak on that, but I can speak on private equity in general. I can speak on profits in general and capitalism in general, which is a system that does work. Once again, she wants to demonize John Deaton, coming from nothing, a food stamp warrior, to having a net worth in the tens of millions. Where did you generate your net worth from, Senator? Right? You can't criticize John Deaton for coming from nothing, now being worth 10 million, and you want to criticize him for not doing charity. Well, I'll tell you what, there's over 100,000 people in a community of small retail investors that are very appreciative of the time and the charity work that he donated to us and the victory that we achieved over the SEC, which she didn't want to talk about. Speaking of the SEC chair, that was a bombshell that I was not expecting. See, John Deaton had a few in his pocket here. He showed up with a few in his pocket tonight. And to say that he has enough to prosecute Elizabeth Warren for criminal perjury, right? That he used to prosecute these cases and he has enough to prosecute her. And all she could say was that John Deaton's making up a story. He's making up his fantasies, right? No. And she avoided that one just like she avoided all these other questions. I love how he did that because they weren't going to ask her these questions. So John Deaton laid out his point and then he'd finish his statement by asking her a very pointed question. Yes or no? Explain yourself. And every single time, 100% of the time, she just dips on out. Just like her good friend Gary Gensler. Convict Warren on perjury. Absolutely. Now, she kept on wanting to bring up the 80, 90, 100. And you could tell every time that crypto got brought up, she got so worked up. Like she was trying to keep the mic. She wasn't trying to share. She was cutting in. She wasn't interjecting or interrupting except when it came to crypto. When it comes to crypto, she gets all excited about it, right? And she brought it up a couple times that 80% of his net worth is in crypto, 90% of his donations are coming from crypto, and 100% of his loyalty is to crypto. As John Deaton mentions out, big super PACs are supporting him along with politicians across the board. By and large, when you look at his donations, the average donation is $100 because it's coming from small grassroots American patriots that want to take out Elizabeth Warren, and John Deaton is the man to do it, and they know it. And just like John Deaton pointed out, this industry, if we weren't attacked, wouldn't be shelling out the billions of dollars in donations. And I don't even know if it's reached the billions yet. You know, she keeps on calling them billionaires. I don't even think that the total political donations have eclipsed more than a few $100 million from crypto. Maybe somebody can fact check me on that. But to John Deaton's point, if we weren't under attack, we wouldn't be supporting this cause, right? And she wants to criticize John. All of his donations are coming from crypto, as if he's somehow bought and paid for by the crypto. But when you go and look at what John Deaton's done on behalf of the crypto community, it was defending small retail investors against the government overreach that has been rejected by a Democrat judge that was elected by Barack Obama. And you can't criticize Deaton and his crypto billionaire investors that are donating to him if you're not going to criticize Kamala Harris. Is Kamala Harris going to reject the $1 million worth of XRP that she just collected from Chris Larson? The same XRP that the SEC wants to continue attacking. The same SEC that's ran by Gary Gensler, Elizabeth Warren's best friend, the one that she fed questions to before he came to testify in Congress. Right? I want to hear if Elizabeth Warren thinks that Kamala Harris should return that crypto donation. If it's so bad to, accept crypto donations, should Kamala Harris return the crypto donations? Hey, furthermore, should FTX donations be returned? All the FTX donations that went to both sides of the aisle, should those be returned as well? Let's have that conversation, Elizabeth. We'd love to have that conversation. We'd also like to look into your donors as well, too. They can cover themselves up behind NGOs, different entities, different nonprofit groups, whatever story they're telling. We know where your money comes from because we know which questions you won't ask, which is exactly what John Deaton pointed out. We know which questions you won't ask when you do have the CEO of these big banks in front of you. You'll talk to them about overdraft fees, but not crimes against humanity, which is a very telling signal. I'm very glad that John Deaton brought this up as well, too. All this tax the wealth nonsense, tax the rich, tax the wealthy, tax the rich. It's just simple arithmetic that these doofus morons don't want to do. If you collected and you confiscated all the wealth from all of our billionaires, which it's only 700 billionaires in America, you don't need 70,000 IRS agents, right? But as Elizabeth Warren noted, those agents, what are they going after? People who made over $400,000. Well, I don't know about you guys, but making a few $100,000 doesn't put you anywhere in today's society, right? And I know that's a lot of money. I get it. But this is the problem, is that the person who's making $500,000 or $1 million or a few $1 million, who puts a few M in the bank account each year from their business, they employ people. And so when you go to tax their wealth, you're hurting the retail investor, or in this case, the average worker, the middle class worker that works for the small business owner who nets 10 million profit. Why are we, demonizing profit? We act like it's like the big evil private equity guys. No, you just mentioned that you want to tax the people that make $400,000. Well, the people that make $400,000 employ, the small businesses of America that run this country. That's who you're going to harm. And if we just do some simple arithmetic, even in new mass, even in Common Core mass, if you take all the wealth, it's only 4.5 trillion, which, as John Deaton noted, would only cover the interest on our national debt for 4 years. That 4.5 trillion, because we're at 1 trillion per year in interest payments on our debt. So you can take all the wealth you want from our billionaires, and you might as well be, as the good old boys would say, pissing in the wind. But the doofus moron brainwashed kids that think that capitalism is the devil and that socialism is the answer don't take the time to do that simple arithmetic. It's more convenient, it's more comfortable to demonize the rich and the wealthy when it comes out to the real enforcement is actually targeting people that are actually only making, 6 figures, maybe a few million. And that's a bold-faced lie, too. Let's expand on that, because we know that they are setting up the systems to be able to track and trace every single transaction. And if Elizabeth Warren got her way, it would be CBDC, where literally every single transaction would be reported. We put it on blockchain. And she should actually be talking about how she loves blockchain when it comes to CBDC and how much power that would give to the Federal Reserve and the government. So, once again, I thought that John Deaton put on an absolute clinic again here today. Fantastic work by John Deaton. And I'm looking forward to seeing how the polls come out here. I think that there was clear collusion in this debate between the moderators and Elizabeth Warren. That low blow question was completely uncalled for. They cut him off, and I think that they gave her way more time. But even with that being said, he got enough airtime. And this is exactly why she didn't want to do 5 debates. John Deaton, which I think is a great thing. This should be the case in debates across our country. Obviously, the local elections are ran by the states. And I'm not saying that there needs to be like a national law that we have to have 5 debates. I'm just saying it's a good idea, I think, to have at least 3, 4, 5 debates. And the way that John Deaton proposed it, let's do individual issues. Let's hone in. We don't need to cover 10 different topics. Economy, even one on women's reproductive rights, because that apparently is such a big topic this year. Don't get me started. And then a handful of other issues. Why can't we do 5 debates going over these individual issues? She didn't want to do that because she'd get completely exposed, just like she did in these 2 debates. And see, just like with John Deaton, when the folks find out about him, they fall in love. And I pray to God that we're able to elect him to senator in the great state of Massachusetts. In similar fashion, when folks learn about crypto and then they learn about XRP, then they start to fall in love and they realize, oh, wow, what's happening right now in the XRP community with all the programmability that's coming. We even got memes that are now coming to the XRP ledger, and folks are realizing, wow, you can do NFTs. They have an AMM. We have functionality and sidechains around us, right? Memes have now come on board. We can do memes on the XRP ledger now. Folks didn't know this because we weren't given airtime. Folks didn't know about John Deaton because they weren't given airtime to him. Folks are only getting to see a glimpse of John Deaton because she only agreed to 2 debates. And she only agreed to do the debates until the mail-in voting had already begun. These people are scared to death of our movement, not just John Deaton, of our movement. John Deaton is one of the generals on the front of this battlefield leading the charge. I, along with so many of you, humbly stand behind John Deaton, doing everything that we can to support John Deaton in this fight. Not just against the SEC, but like John Deaton says, he supports term limits. Let's get something done now. Let's not try to play politics so we can figure out how we can stay in control for the next decade. Massachusetts is going to fall in love with Deaton, and I guarantee you, he's at least going to give her a run for her money. There's a reason why she's in full panic. Is John Deaton going to win? God willing, and I hope so. I got John Deaton linked up down below. Let's do everything that we can to support him. Not only is Massachusetts going to fall in love with John Deaton, America's falling in love with John Deaton, just like so many in the crypto community have fallen in love with John Deaton. In similar fashion, let's take XRP viral. Let's take our movement, which is bigger than just John Deaton, bigger than XRP. It's about sound money. I feel like that is the one issue that our country and humanity, for that matter, can gather around. When you can freely transact with sound money, whatever form of value that you want to transact in, maybe some of you guys don't want to do sound money. You want to do Dogecoin. You have that right. The ability to transact value freely. I prefer sound money. I know many of you guys prefer sound money. By the way, if you're looking to get precious metals, we do have them linked up down below. I'm only going to plug in one more thing here before I close out this session here tonight. But this is what it's all about, is taking XRP viral. Linked up down below is the Fruition Productions store. We can support Fruition Productions, who's putting together the XRP documentary. They just released this exclusive merchandise drop, the XRP Unleashed premiere. Some good looking merch right here. The other thing that's going to happen here is in less than an hour, in 45 minutes at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, ticket sales for the screening tour, for the XRP Unleashed documentary screening tour, they're going to go on sale here in 45 minutes, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on that website that I have linked up down below. Furthermore, you can buy the tickets for this pre-screen for $40, but you also can pre-order the documentary for $15. For only $15, you can support this film, this cause, independent media group, just like myself. Hollywood wouldn't accept me. Hollywood would never accept me, just like they'd never accept this XRP documentary, right? I will never sell out. John Deaton will never sell out. So many of you in this XRP community, we will not sell out or compromise on our values. That's what brings us together. That's what keeps us in this fight. If you appreciate what we're doing, please make sure you have liked this video. Help me out by sharing our content out far and wide. We got links up down below to go support Fruition Productions. John Deaton, you want to support my cause? We're in this together until the very end. We are going to continue to fight life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness on a level playing field. That's all we ask for. I appreciate everybody for stopping by here tonight. I will see you guys in the next one. God bless you all. Thank you so much.